Amid Pennsylvania's brooding forests and ancient ridges, stir truths that resist time. Forgotten hands shaped stones to the stars, etched symbols into living rock, and vanished without name or trace. These are not relics of myth, but artifacts science still cannot decode. Where are you listening from? What ancestral dust lies under your own feet? Share your place below. This is Unmapped Mysteries, where history whispers louder in silence than in record. High on Pocono Ridge, stone fortresses peer across the valley like ancient sentinels. These elevated structures, dry-laid without mortar, form ringed enclosures, some over 100 feet across. Their strategic placement offers commanding views, ideal for defense or signal fires. But curiously, they contain no hearths, no weapon caches, no traces of prolonged life. Archaeologists have puzzled over their origin. Some suggest they were early Lenape watchposts, but their construction differs from known Lenape methods. Others propose a far older, unknown culture, one adept in stonework, familiar with terrain, but curiously absent from oral tradition. Recent LiDAR scans uncovered additional walls buried beneath moss and leaf litter, forming complex interlocking rings, suggesting intentional design. No written records refer to them, no myths claim them, yet they stand, weathered but intact, watching, as if waiting for something. Some say they were never meant to house people, but ideas, warnings, altars, memory made stone. But memory of what? The age of these fortresses remains uncertain, but geological weathering implies centuries, if not millennia, of exposure. Could they have served as gathering places during celestial events, or as refuges in times of chaos? Their location above natural fault lines and magnetic anomalies hints at deeper purpose. Perhaps they were not made to guard the land, but to seal it. Atop wind-blasted ridges of the Allegheny Plateau lie enigmatic stone circles, each composed of dozens of quartzite boulders, arranged with mathematical precision. These formations, often dismissed as colonial sheep pens or logging remnants, defy such mundane explanations. Many feature central fire pits, radial paths, and aligned entryways, pointing to celestial events, the solstice sunrise or specific constellations. Some include upright stones that hum faintly when struck, hinting at acoustical functions. The quartz content, known to amplify vibrations, has led fringe theorists to suggest spiritual or energetic purposes. Yet, mainstream archaeologists remain hesitant. No tools, bones, or domestic debris have ever been found within these rings. No local tribes claim them. Their silence is total. Aerial surveys show many arranged in clusters, as if mimicking star charts or geoglyphs. The oldest may predate known habitation by thousands of years. Without inscriptions or artifacts, their builders remain anonymous, but their geometry speaks clearly. Someone here understood the sky. Whether these sites were used to monitor solstices or served as ritual theaters for seasonal rites, the uniformity of design implies more than chance. If these circles did serve astronomical or ceremonial functions, the knowledge they preserve could outdate written history. Today they remain untouched, perfectly silent calendars carved into stone. The Juniata Basin, long known for its fertile plains and winding river, holds traces of a lost civilization now buried by time and silt. Archaeological digs revealed linear hearths, fish weirs constructed from river stone, and rows of post holes indicating semi-permanent structures. Carbon dating places them centuries before recognized indigenous settlements. Yet, unlike known tribal camps, these sites lack pottery, tools, or burial plots. What was found instead were rows of obsidian flakes, non-native to Pennsylvania, suggesting long-distance trade or migration. Oddly, layers of flood debris indicate a sudden environmental event may have wiped them out. But no skeletons were found. No village was rebuilt nearby. Oral traditions from local native groups speak only vaguely of the river people, who vanished when the waters rose. Could they have fled upriver, merged into another culture, or were they erased entirely? Their legacy lies in the soil, in burnt charcoal, scattered flakes, and the mystery of their absence. Even more curiously, several hearth sites had been intentionally dismantled, the stones neatly stacked beside them. Was this a farewell ritual, or evidence of a population that intended to return? The questions remain unanswered, swallowed by the floodplain, where rivers remember more than they reveal. Subsurface scans of the lower Susquehanna Valley have revealed vast geometric layouts hidden beneath farmlands. Grids of rectangular depressions, spaced evenly like ancient city blocks. Each depression matches the dimensions of longhouses or public gathering halls found in other regions, yet here they stretch for miles, unnaturally uniform. Curiously, excavation of a few revealed hardened clay floors and fire-reddened stone, but no artifacts, no trash pits, no bones. The sites were used, but possibly cleared before abandonment. Some grids align not with rivers or trails, but with magnetic north, hinting at astronomical or spiritual orientation. LiDAR imagery has identified at least 6 such complexes, none recorded in colonial records or tribal lore. The eerie consistency across these sites suggests a culture that valued symmetry, perhaps one guided by ritual geometry. Who built these ghost towns of clay and fire, and why did they vanish so completely that even their name did not survive? There is speculation these layouts mirror sacred patterns found in Old World mandalas, possibly reflecting a worldview centered on balance and order. If these sites were religious centers or social hubs, their absence from oral tradition is troubling. It's as if the memory of them was not lost, but deliberately erased. Deep inside the limestone underworld of Bald Eagle Mountain, cavers found multi-chambered caves, bearing evidence of prehistoric occupation. Charred ceilings, soot-layered walls, and shallow alcoves suggest long-term torchlit usage. In several chambers, archaeologists discovered stacked rock walls forming sleeping nooks, while side niches contained smooth river stones, likely used for heating or rituals. Despite their domestic layout, no tools, bones, or food remains were uncovered, only ash layers and ochre smears on the stone. One chamber had a spiral carved into the floor, just large enough for a curled body. Was it a burial, a vision space, or something more symbolic? Local native traditions mention spirit journeys into the mountain, paths for shamans or seekers. But these chambers seem too elaborate, too engineered for single use. Were they hideouts, sanctuaries, or shrines? Their air still smells faintly of smoke, and every step deeper in whispers. Someone once lived, or dreamed, here, and left without a sound. Even more puzzling is the presence of quartz veins embedded into the walls, deliberately chipped in places, possibly harvested for ritual. The deepest chamber contains a natural chimney, aligned with the winter solstice sun, suggesting these caves were more than shelter. They were calendars carved into stone, alive with light and shadow. Bedford County's rugged ridgelines conceal a network of petroforms, large rock patterns resembling serpent spirals and arrows, only visible from the air. Some measure over 200 feet across, built from intentionally placed stones, not native to their locations. Their layouts mirror constellations like Draco or the Pleiades, with heads oriented to cardinal points or solstice sunrises. Unlike geoglyphs in the southwest, these appear in forested terrain, hidden beneath centuries of canopy and soil. Most were discovered via aerial drone photography and confirmed by LiDAR mapping. On the ground, they appear as uneven rubble fields, but from above, their precision is breathtaking. No local tribes claim them, and no stories explain their origin. Some theorists link them to Old World knowledge, seafarers or druids, but there's no physical evidence. Their mystery endures in silence. Why carve stars into Pennsylvania's hills? Who needed sky maps no one could see from below? And what did they hope to summon or remember? Some researchers have proposed that these petroforms acted as energetic grids, interfaces between earth and sky, where rituals amplified cosmic resonance. The vegetation around them grows in odd patterns, with species found nowhere else nearby. These hills may not just hold symbols, They may pulse with forgotten purpose, encoded in stone and shadow. Western Pennsylvania's cone-shaped mounds, some rising nearly 20 feet high, have long been attributed to the Adena culture, but many lie hundreds of miles beyond known Adena territories. These perfectly tapered earth mounds often crown isolated hills or sit beside vanished waterways, their positioning too consistent to be accidental. Excavations revealed alternating layers of clay and sand, precisely packed to withstand erosion. At the core of several mounds were chambers lined with bark and crushed quartz. But strikingly, these chambers held no bones, no grave goods, just air, darkness, and silence. Some archaeologists suggest cenotaphs, monuments to the absent dead. Others speculate on sky burials or symbolic offerings to celestial beings. Soil analysis indicates some were built in under a week, as though by a large organized force. But whose force? The builders left no language, no legend, no descendant tribe to claim them. The mounds rise from the earth like questions, tall, silent, and waiting. Some are aligned with lunar or solar cycles, raising the possibility of ceremonial function. Others seem isolated, yet eerily uniform in size and composition. The theory that they mark a forgotten pilgrimage route remains unproven, but compelling. They are relics of intention without context, construction without memory. Their builders left nothing but shape and silence. In the wooded lands near the Connemara River, a settler's 1790 journal described an immense earth mound shaped like a crouching beast. Its head turned west, limbs outstretched, tail curled. Dubbed the Earthen Beast, it allegedly measured over 300 feet from nose to tail. The mound was leveled in the early 1900s during railroad expansion, but modern satellite scans show soil discoloration, matching the beast's reported outline. If real, it would rival the Ohio Serpent Mound in scale. No similar effigy exists in Pennsylvania records. The animal type remains debated. Some say panther, others bear or lizard. Oddly, a nearby grove revealed stone markers, forming a crescent and several charred post holes. Was this mound a spiritual guardian, a cosmic creature rendered in earth, or a massive hoax lost to time? Its erasure only deepens the mystery. With no excavation, no artifacts, and no witness left alive, we're left only with shape and shadow. The cultural void it left behind invites speculation, from astronomical symbolism to territorial markings or ancestor veneration. Was the beast a boundary, a warning, a worship totem? Whatever it was, its outline persists in whispers, inviting not only investigation, but reverence. Crawford County's rolling hills hold a secret that emerges only under starlight. 3 earthen mounds, evenly spaced across 6 miles, mirror the alignment of Orion's belt. 2 close together, 1 slightly offset. Ground surveys show uniform height, diameter and orientation, each facing a precise solstice point. Inside the central mound, archaeologists uncovered shards of mica, an uncommon reflective mineral, alongside smelted copper beads and scorched human remains. No pottery, no tools, just offerings and fire. The builders seem to have tracked stars, timed burials to cosmic events, and worshipped through alignment. The copper's source, Lake Superior; the mica, possibly Appalachia. Such distances imply a trade network, perhaps even pilgrimage routes. But who were these sky watchers, and where did they go? No nearby villages have been found, and no descendants lay claim to the mounds. As the stars repeat their dance each year, the 3 hills remain fixed in the dark, markers of a forgotten theology. The precise astronomical knowledge displayed here predates known regional systems by centuries. Did these mounds function as cosmic waypoints, connecting this world to another? Were the offerings messages, sent through fire, to lightless skies? The answers lie sealed in soil, and in the rhythms of stars they still echo. In a secluded meadow in Mercer County lie the faint but distinct traces of triangular earthworks, large equilateral constructions with corners precisely angled at 60 degrees. These aren't walls, but shallow ditches forming massive geometric outlines, enclosing low mounds at each point. When viewed from above, the triangles resemble abstract compasses, pointing toward equinox sunrise positions. Soil analysis reveals layers of ash, crushed quartz, and burned cedar, a combination found in ritual sites across ancient America. Yet, no known tribe in this region used triangle symbolism at such scale. The earthwork's hidden location, far from rivers or trails, suggests deliberate seclusion. Some scholars believe they were ceremonial spaces, while others theorize calendar temples aligned to seasonal change. Still, others whisper of star beings and portals, a belief preserved in scattered native folklore. But the truth remains buried. No excavation has been sanctioned, no artifacts disturb the soil, and the triangles still point skyward, unblinking. Insects avoid the area, and birds rarely perch nearby. The vegetation within the outlines grows differently, denser and slightly darker, as if fed by something unseen. Perhaps the triangle is not just a shape, but a symbol of convergence, where three worlds once met: earth, sky, and spirit. Deep within Tioga State Forest, beneath centuries of moss and leaf decay, explorers uncovered a system of multi-chamber tombs unlike any seen in northeastern America. Crafted from dry stacked slate and sandstone, the tombs lie arranged in a clover-leaf pattern, each chamber sealed by a massive flat stone too heavy for modern hikers to lift. Once opened, the tombs revealed eerie minimalism: small stone bowls filled with ochre dust, smooth rocks arranged in spirals, and not a single human bone. Each chamber's floor sloped gently inward toward a central point, as though designed to collect something. Ashes, perhaps, or blood. One chamber featured a low stone seat, worn smooth by centuries of contact. Was this a mortuary, an initiation site, or a place of sacrifice? No nearby cultural structures exist. The tombs seem isolated, intentional, and constructed with skill beyond local knowledge of the period. Their silence is heavy, ritual carved into stone. Above them, trees grow twisted, and lichen blooms in rare patterns. Visitors report disorientation, headaches, and a persistent sense of being watched. The entire site feels held in suspension, as though time here hasn't passed, but paused. Whatever these tombs were meant to contain, perhaps they still do. In the Lehigh Gap, where water carves deep scars through Appalachian stone, ancient burial outlines emerge only during drought. These circular and oval formations, visible in riverbed rock, resemble Hopewell or Adena mound patterns, but are composed entirely of native basalt slabs fitted without mortar. Each formation contains a center pit now filled with silt, and smaller surrounding depressions like satellite graves. Curiously, the basalt in these outlines doesn't match surrounding geology. It was carried here from miles away. Local lore calls them singing circles, and hikers have reported strange acoustics when standing at their centers, echoes that don't match the environment. No bones or artifacts have been recovered, and preservation laws have blocked formal excavation. The formations appear and vanish with the river's mood, as though playing a seasonal game of revelation and concealment. In their rare appearances, they offer a whisper of something sacred, waiting, and just out of scientific reach. Some researchers believe they served as seasonal temples, visible only when the land was ready to reveal them. Their fleeting nature gives them a spectral quality, temples that rise only when summoned by drought, reminders that the sacred cannot always be seized, only glimpsed. Along weathered rocks beside the Allegheny River, thunderbird carvings stretch their wings in silence. These petroglyphs, etched into shale and sandstone, depict enormous avian shapes with outspread feathers, talon-like feet, and lightning bolt patterns trailing from beaks. Measuring up to 6 feet wide, they dwarf most known native rock art in the region. Archaeologists date the weathering of the grooves to over 1,000 years old, long before contact, but cannot firmly tie the style to any specific tribal tradition. Some images are paired with concentric circles, suggesting solar or spiritual motifs. Indigenous oral histories speak of great sky beings that shaped the weather, punished arrogance, and delivered prophecy. The carvings were possibly ceremonial, meant to summon or appease such beings. No tools have been found near the site, but quartz fragments and fire-scorched rocks hint at ritual use. Why this specific location? Why so many thunderbirds, so remote? Perhaps the river itself was the witness and participant. Its constant motion, its roar and calm, may have served as backdrop or rhythm to rituals now forgotten. Even today, the air around the rocks feels charged, and thunder seems to linger longer here, as if the birds still fly, carved in stone and alive in storm. Near Safe Harbor, where the Susquehanna rushes between ancient bluffs, lies one of Pennsylvania's most confounding sights. The Safe Harbor petroglyph field, etched across dozens of exposed river rocks, are symbols whose meanings remain elusive. Swirls, human-like forms with antlers, canoe rows, inverted triangles, and unfamiliar creatures with elongated limbs. The style differs wildly from petroglyphs found farther west, and many symbols defy classification in known native iconography. What's most peculiar is their placement. Some are partially submerged year-round, visible only during low water, suggesting they were meant to be seen fleetingly, or by spirits within the river. Scholars debate whether the markings represent hunting magic, shamanic visions, or a proto-writing system lost to time. Indigenous descendants speak of messages to the deep, left for those who walk beneath the water. These carvings haven't been fully documented due to accessibility challenges, meaning that many may remain undiscovered, hidden by the river's ever-shifting veil. Some believe the rocks themselves act as an interface between worlds, a ceremonial ledger recording deeds, warnings, or songs. When the water drops low enough to reveal them, the stones feel less uncovered and more awakened. Observers often report a hum, subtle, rhythmic, not quite sound but presence. A conversation perhaps, not meant for us. Hidden within the narrow caves surrounding Raystown Lake are mysterious etchings once dismissed as graffiti, until researchers noticed patterns that mimic ancient star maps. In 3 separate caverns, symbols resembling constellations Orion, Cygnus, and the Pleiades have been carved into stone walls with surprising astronomical accuracy. Accompanying the celestial forms are concentric rings, aeroglyphs, and strange stick figures with radiating lines from their heads. These figures are often posed as if observing the stars. Burn marks and primitive lamp residues suggest long-term use of these caverns, likely for night rituals or skyward ceremonies. What's most unsettling is the placement of the symbols, only visible under certain lighting angles or moon phases, hinting at deliberate hidden knowledge. Were these maps prayer spaces, initiation sites for star priests? Without artifacts or language, we can only infer, but the stars, mapped underground in secrecy, suggest that some ancient Pennsylvanians didn't just watch the sky, they tried to speak with it. The act of recording constellations in stone, far from view of the heavens, implies an inner cosmology, a belief that the sky lived not only above, but within. These were not just astronomers, they were dreamers, marking light with shadow. In the dense thickets along Bald Eagle Creek, a rock face juts outward like a natural canvas, scarred with dismembered figures, etched crudely, but powerfully, into its surface. Legs severed from torsos, heads detached and surrounded by concentric circles. One figure has 2 spines and 3 arms, another a gaping mouth with flame-like lines trailing outward. At first assumed to be signs of tribal conflict or executions, the symbols bear no resemblance to battle depictions from known local cultures. Instead, they align eerily with sacrificial motifs seen in Mesoamerican petroglyphs, suggesting either parallel development or far-reaching influence. No other site in the Northeast contains such brutal, abstract forms. The rock's location, high above the creek, suggests it was not for public view, but for spirits or select witnesses. Offerings of red ochre and charred wood have been found nearby. These figures may not be literal victims, but spiritual diagrams recordings of ritual dismemberment, purification, or transformation. Some scholars theorize the site represents a spiritual autopsy, a step-by-step disassembly of the self as part of an initiatory rite. Others say it's a warning. Regardless, the wind through the trees often carries strange harmonics here, as if the stone still screams, softly, for those who dare listen. Along the winding Susquehanna River, petroglyphs of spirals and serpents coil across flattened boulders, often near eddies and whirlpools. These recurring forms, some nearly 6 feet in diameter, mirror cosmic patterns seen in other parts of the world, including Neolithic Europe and Mesoamerica. The serpent glyphs frequently emerge beside depictions of the sun, suggesting a duality of solar and chthonic forces. Some spirals are deeply incised, their grooves polished from centuries of river spray and contact, as though touched repeatedly during rituals. According to some native oral traditions, the river was a serpent path connecting worlds, and these carvings may have served as symbolic gateways. One boulder bears a spiral so precise in its proportions, it matches the golden ratio, though whether intentional or coincidence remains debated. The serpents here do not menace. They spiral inward, beckoning. Their meaning eludes modern scholars, but their power remains unmistakable. The river is more than water, it remembers. In low light, the petroglyphs appear to ripple like the water itself, blurring lines between stone and stream, memory and movement. The ancients may have believed that touching these forms allowed one to cross, briefly, between worlds. In the rarely explored caverns near Erie, explorers stumbled upon runic symbols, etched along narrow corridor walls, marks that resemble Old Norse or Phoenician scripts, more than any known indigenous writing. The characters, sharp and angular, span several feet in length, and seem arranged in sequential patterns, as if forming sentences. Some scholars dismiss the idea entirely, citing the lack of Norse presence in the area. Others argue they could be a form of proto-script, developed independently. What deepens the mystery is the presence of bone fragments, burned shell, and obsidian flakes nearby, none native to the Erie region. Carbon dating of a nearby charred post yielded an age of over 1,200 years. Were these ancient visitors from across the sea, rogue traders? Or was this script invented by a now lost inland culture? Without a Rosetta Stone or associated relics, interpretation is impossible, but the symbols remain, cut deep into silence, in a language no one speaks. A few of the characters resemble celestial alignments or navigational points. If they were meant to be read, it was not aloud, but inward, perhaps in trance or dream. The cave feels less like a place of communication, and more like one of confession, an archive not of knowledge, but longing. High atop Tussey Mountain's ridge, lines of massive boulders stretch across the spine like vertebrae, deliberately placed, perfectly spaced, and aligned with unnerving precision. At first believed to be glacial erratics, further analysis revealed patterns that repeat every 26.4 feet, forming a linear path that aligns with the equinox sunrise. Some boulders are etched with shallow grooves forming interlocking triangles and arrow shapes. The stones are not native to the summit, and must have been dragged or levered into place from lower altitudes, a feat requiring immense labor and organization. No known native cultures in the region documented or described such formations. Archaeologists remain cautious, suggesting the alignments may be coincidental, but LIDAR has revealed secondary paths branching off, forming a grid beneath vegetation. Were these navigational aids, sacred walkways, or astronomical calendars? Perhaps all three. What's clear is this: someone understood the terrain, the sky, and the power of arrangement, and chose this mountain as their canvas. In the deep forested hills of Elk County, a massive boulder, perfectly balanced atop a narrow outcrop, has mystified hikers and geologists alike for generations. Known locally as the stone that watches, it sits with uncanny symmetry, as if placed with purpose. The outcrop it rests on shows signs of human smoothing and etching, including spiral carvings, notches, and a central depression filled with rainwater. Some believe the boulder marks a solstice point, as its shadow aligns perfectly with a distant peak during midsummer dawn. Others argue it may have functioned as a seasonal calendar or ceremonial altar. Despite weighing over 40 tons, the boulder rocks gently when pushed but never tips, balanced so precisely that even seismic activity hasn't dislodged it. There are no nearby quarries or signs of transport tools. Was this nature's coincidence, or a feat of prehistoric engineering? Either way, it stands watching, balanced and refusing to fall. Hidden in the woodlands of Fayette County are the ruins of a sun-calibrated stone passageway, an underground corridor that channels sunlight only during specific days of the year. The corridor, constructed of interlocking slabs and dry-laid stone, leads into a small chamber whose ceiling opens to the sky via a narrow vertical shaft. During the summer solstice, sunlight pierces the shaft and illuminates a central stone carved with concentric circles. Similar structures exist in Ireland and Peru, but this one, inexplicably, lies in rural Pennsylvania. Ground scans suggest additional chambers nearby, possibly connected by collapsed tunnels. The passage's entrance is camouflaged by earth and moss, and was first discovered by hunters in the 1970s. Archaeological interest has been stifled by private land disputes. No inscriptions or artifacts have been found, but the structure remains impossibly precise, tuned to the rhythm of the sun. It's as if time itself was trapped here, waiting to be seen. At Pine Creek Gorge, dubbed Pennsylvania's Grand Canyon, explorers stumbled upon a cluster of subterranean stone chambers, each built with megalithic slabs forming corbelled roofs. These chambers, buried beneath layers of forest soil, were discovered only through erosion and flood events. Each room measures around 12 feet in length, with narrow stone passageways connecting them. Their construction mirrors old-world dolmens, with massive lintels and upright supports, bearing immense weight without collapse. The chambers are bone-dry, expertly ventilated, and oriented with geomagnetic precision. But their purpose remains a mystery. No fire pits, burials, or artifacts were found, only finely packed soil and occasional red ochre stains. Some theorists propose ancient astronomers used these as observing or recording spaces. Others suggest ritual incubation, periods of darkness to trigger vision quests. Their design defies colonial or indigenous architectural precedent. The stone whispers no language, yet the walls feel intentional, an architecture of memory carved from shadow and earth. In the forgotten woodlands of Washington County, archaeologists uncovered low pyramidal platforms formed from massive flat stones stacked in stepped arrangements. Measuring up to 40 feet across and standing 10 feet tall, these structures are oriented with mathematical precision, 4 sides aligned with cardinal directions. The platforms resemble Mesoamerican ceremonial altars, but lack carvings or iconography. Soil samples from the base revealed layers of charcoal, burned bone fragments, and traces of wild tobacco. Each platform is surrounded by a ring of standing stones, forming a boundary circle exactly 108 feet in diameter, a sacred number in several ancient cosmologies. Were these used for fire rituals, community ceremonies, or celestial observation? No dwellings or tools were discovered nearby, suggesting the platforms weren't domestic. They stand alone, both in purpose and design, as if dropped into the forest from a vanished worldview. Why here? Why this geometry? The platforms pose a challenge. How do you explain architecture that doesn't belong? Amid the rolling hills of Lancaster County lies a field where stone pillars rise in straight, evenly spaced rows, each carved with triangular notches, compass grooves, and directional lines, pointing toward horizon markers. These geometrically aligned pillars, varying in height from 3 to 6 feet, are cut from a local sandstone yet polished, as if worked by hand. When mapped, their layout matches a precise hexagonal grid, a design not seen in any indigenous or colonial land practices. Some pillars align with solstice shadows, while others create acoustic effects when wind passes through carved slits. Local farmers avoided the area, calling it the Whispering Lot. Nearby, buried stone discs have been found with radial spokes, similar to medicine wheels or astronomical calendars. No known records explain the site, and it remains unmarked on official surveys. Was this a sacred classroom, a place of measurement, or something else entirely, where form, sound, and sky once converged in ritual? Beneath the dense canopy of the Allegheny National Forest lies a network of hidden tunnels, narrow, stone-lined passageways that twist beneath the surface for hundreds of feet. Discovered in part during a 1960s oil survey, the tunnels are not natural caves, but clearly constructed corridors, some with interlocking stone ceilings and crude ventilation shafts. The walls show soot marks, and floor grooves suggest the dragging of heavy objects. Their dimensions, barely 4 feet in height, imply they weren't designed for easy human passage. Several entrances have since collapsed, and others were sealed after unauthorized exploration resulted in disappearances. The purpose of these tunnels remains a mystery. No burial goods, tools, or carvings have been recovered. Some speculate they served as ritual pathways for underground ceremonies. Others believe they were escape routes for a vanished society. The forest above grows thicker each year, but underground, something older than the trees still wins in shadowed silence. Near the ruins of the Kinsaw Bridge in McKean County lies a system of labyrinthine cave tunnels, some stretching multiple levels deep. First mapped by spelunkers in the early 2000s, these natural caves exhibit suspiciously geometric modifications, chisel marks on stone, spiraling stair paths, and man-made ledges that form tight switchbacks. At the lowest levels, chambers show signs of habitation, charred clay hearths, carved alcoves, and piles of crushed shell, unusual for the region's inland geography. What's most bizarre is the resonance of the space. Drumming near the entrance produces tones echoed in specific inner chambers. Some archaeologists theorize the system was used for acoustic rituals. Others believe it was an underground village, sheltered from weather or conflict. No one has yet discovered a full artifact set to identify its creators. But the deeper you descend, the colder it becomes, not just physically, but atmospherically. Something ancient clings to these walls, something that never left. In the quiet farmland of Berks County, rumors of stone-lined passageways have circulated for centuries, tales passed down by settlers of tunnels that run beneath barns, woods, and even entire hillsides. In 1994, a construction project unearthed a collapsed entrance to one such passage, a narrow corridor braced with stacked shale slabs and sealed with a hexagonal stone bearing no recognizable script. Explorers found it extended over 80 feet before turning sharply and disappearing beneath a wooded ridge. Inside were niches spaced at regular intervals, some containing charred wood, others filled with tightly packed dirt. The design suggests purposeful construction, not accident. While folklore once attributed these to escaped slaves or colonial militias, their age appears far older. Some believe they were initiation paths, meant to be walked in darkness, in silence, a ritual underground. Today, many such entrances have been reburied by farmers or left hidden by overgrowth. But they're still there, waiting. The deep karst formations in Somerset Caverns hold more than stalactites and limestone beauty. They also conceal sealed chambers, accessible only by narrow vertical crawls. One chamber, opened in 2007 by a group of expert cavers, revealed a low-ceilinged room with an oddly smooth floor and perfectly rounded walls. In the center stood a ring of standing stones, each less than 3 feet tall, but carved with repeating angular symbols. The air was unnaturally dry, and the chamber's acoustics were dead silent. No echo, no drip. Soil samples showed traces of mercury, ash, and hematite. Mercury, rarely occurring in such environments, is often linked to ancient ritual practices. No bones, tools, or relics were found, only alignment, geometry, and absence. The chamber felt less like a tomb and more like a containment space. Was it sacred, protective, or forbidden? Since the discovery, the entrance collapsed in a minor earthquake, and no one has seen the chamber since. Within the misty elevations of the Moshannon Highlands lies a subterranean maze known only to locals as the Breathing Halls. Discovered accidentally by surveyors in the early 20th century, the caves are unusually structured. Horizontal shafts leading to stacked chambers that stretch downward in tiers, like underground ziggurats. Each level has its own air temperature and echo signature, and deep readings show airflow shifts that don't align with known vent systems. At the third tier, several stone benches are carved into the walls, facing an alcove with a blank stone tablet. That tablet emits faint EM readings, unexplained by geology. Some researchers suggest this was a ritual theatre. Others think it was a calendar chamber, meant to capture seasonal air currents or light patterns. Yet no indigenous group in Pennsylvania is known to have constructed such complex subterranean spaces. Whether the halls were ceremonial, observational, or inhabited remains unknown. They still breathe, quietly, rhythmically, as if alive. Beneath York's historic district, urban renewal projects in the 1980s revealed a network of burial vaults, interlinked catacombs of stone dating far earlier than colonial architecture. Originally mistaken for basements, these arched chambers stretch deep and contain limestone shelves stained with dark residues. Unlike Christian catacombs, there are no crosses, no bones, no names, just symmetrical alcoves, odd spiral etchings, and quartz shards placed deliberately in corners. Some vaults connect to narrow crawl spaces, leading to other buildings, suggesting a ritual or navigational purpose. Records from the 1700s mention strange hollow sounds beneath the town square, and legends speak of the lightless roads used by pre-settlement cults. Most vaults have been resealed or built over, and the few remaining are off-limits due to safety concerns. But those who entered speak of unnatural quiet and a vibration barely perceptible beneath their feet. If the dead were ever there, they took their rituals with them into stone. In the rolling hills of Luzerne County, a cache of copper axes was unearthed during a 1930s logging operation, buried together in a circular pattern beneath layers of glacial sediment. Each axe bore unknown markings along the haft, repeating chevrons, spirals, and bird-like figures that don't match known native symbolism. The copper's purity and smelting technique defy expectations for prehistoric metallurgy in the Northeast. Metallurgists confirmed no regional copper source matches the axe's composition, pointing instead to the Great Lakes, or possibly European origin. Local tribes claimed no connection to the artifacts, and the symbols remain undeciphered. Speculation runs rampant. Were these trade goods, offerings, or something more sinister? Why bury valuable metal in a ritual pattern? Some believe the axes marked a burial that has since vanished, while others claim the site pulses magnetically. Most of the axes were quietly sold to collectors, leaving only photos and fragments. Whatever message they carried is now scattered, untranslated, and nearly forgotten. In Warren County, stone tablets inscribed with non-native script were uncovered by a farmer digging for a new well in 1879. The largest, nearly 2 feet wide, bore wedge-shaped carvings that some mistook for cuneiform, though no direct translation exists. One tablet displayed a diagram of what appeared to be a constellation. Another showed interlocked triangles resembling alchemical symbols. For decades, they were stored in a local schoolhouse before disappearing during a fire. Fortunately, rubbings and sketches survived, enough to confirm that the language doesn't resemble any indigenous tongue of the region. Fringe theorists claim Phoenician origin. Others believe they're an elaborate hoax. Still, the artifacts sparked enduring local legends of a sky-fallen people who brought language from the stars. Attempts to replicate the carvings failed. Modern tools left different marks. No other tablets have surfaced, and the well site remains undisturbed, as if the earth prefers silence over explanation. In a boggy field of Franklin County, archaeologists excavated several human effigy pipes, ceremonial smoking tools, carved from clay and stone, shaped into miniature figures of humanoid forms, with exaggerated skulls and elongated limbs. Unlike other effigy pipes found across North America, these lacked tribal attire and instead wore what appeared to be headdresses of feathers and stone discs. Some held tiny orbs, others showed forked tongues or double jaws. Radiocarbon dating places them at nearly 1,500 years old. Residue testing revealed the presence of psychoactive plant compounds not native to the region. These were not daily use pipes. They were tools for entering altered states, perhaps visions or ancestral communication. But the figures disturb more than they inform. Their posture, their expressions, grimacing, open-mouthed, almost in mid-scream, haunt those who've seen them. Were they spirit guides, demon masks, or symbolic carriers of secrets too ancient to repeat? Only 6 were found, all within a 10-foot circle, then the site abruptly ended. Outside Meadville, a farming couple unearthed an enormous femur while digging a root cellar in 1932. Further excavation revealed several oversized tools, bone scrapers, and clubs far too large for average human hands. The bones, assumed to be prehistoric animal remains, were reburied until a local historian retrieved them decades later. Examination revealed they were human, but abnormally large, femurs nearly 36 inches long, and a jawbone with double rows of teeth. These anomalies match dozens of similar accounts across Appalachia, but few physical specimens survive. The Meadville bones were quietly acquired by a private museum and allegedly never displayed. The tools themselves, crude but functional, bear grip markings and wear patterns indicating use, not ceremony. Who were these giants? Why were their tools buried with them? Some suggest they were elite warriors. Others believe they were a genetically distinct population lost to disease or genocide. But without DNA testing or access, the story remains buried. Giant bones in a small town. In the remote hills of Lackawanna Valley, a cache of clay figurines was discovered beneath the collapsed wall of an old barn. Each figure stood no taller than 6 inches and bore dual faces, one serene, the other contorted, as if in pain or ecstasy. Their bodies were etched with repetitive zigzag patterns, and some had removable heads or limbs. X-ray imaging revealed tiny seeds sealed within several torsos, now fossilized but once viable. These were not toys or dolls. The craftsmanship suggests ritual use, possibly fertility rites or ancestral binding practices. Intriguingly, the soil around the find contained elevated levels of mercury and bone ash, hinting at funerary connections. Some folklorists speculate the dual faces represent life and death, or the two souls believed to dwell in every person. No similar figurines have been found in the region, and local lore makes no mention of them. Yet their expressions linger, smiling and screaming, locked in mud and memory. Near the banks of Penns Creek, a series of serpentine totems was uncovered by construction crews leveling forest for a housing development. Each totem, carved from green serpentine stone, depicted elongated reptilian figures wrapped around human skulls or bones. Some bore inlays of crushed garnet or hematite, and several showed signs of exposure to intense heat. The totems stood upright in a deliberate circle around a central fire pit, now filled with ash and bone fragments. Initial analysis showed no modern tool marks. These were carved with stone-on-stone technique, yet possess an eerie symmetry. The site was promptly halted by state archaeologists, but documentation remains scarce. Serpent worship is not widely documented among Pennsylvania tribes, though some Algonquian legends speak of horned water serpents and underworld rivers. These totems, however, seem more complex, more personal. They guard something, or remember it, and once disturbed, their presence has not faded. Local wildlife has since avoided the site entirely. In the rolling fields surrounding Muncie Hills, a discovery in 1891 would spark whispers that still echo through Pennsylvania's hollows. Beneath a burial mound, workers uncovered a skeleton unlike any they had seen. It measured over 9 feet long, with limbs so thick and dense, they defied normal classification. Most chilling of all was the skull, elongated, with an unusually broad jaw, and teeth that were square, flat, and larger than any human molars. Laid in a seated position, the giant was surrounded by copper jewelry, large stone axes, and intricate beadwork. The sight was reported in local newspapers, and the remains were shipped to the Smithsonian Institution for study. But there, the trail ends. Official records of the skeleton vanished. No photos remain, and inquiries yield only silence. Farmers say it was not the first giant to be unearthed, and it won't be the last. They speak of oversized graves in their fields, dug up and reburied without a word. Were these titans real inhabitants of the land, or cultural exaggerations spun from colonial curiosity? All that remains is the disturbed earth and the lingering sense that something impossibly large once walked this soil, and that its bones still lie hidden under plough and forest. In the forgotten burial field of Bradford County, a discovery in the 1920s defied scientific logic and birthed a legend. A series of skulls, dug from a ringed grave circle, contained what dental specialists could scarcely believe: 2 full rows of teeth, perfectly formed and fully functional. These jaws were not malformed anomalies, but symmetrical, well-developed sets of teeth, stacked above and below. The skulls themselves were massive, with thick brow ridges, flared occipital bones, and jaws that suggested a being both human and other. Buried with the skulls were large stone war hammers and carved effigies of horned figures. The site was initially studied by a local college, but within a year, the remains were gone, transferred, some say, to undisclosed institutions. Farmers near the Seven Stones field still speak of strange echoes at dusk, of animals refusing to enter the area, and of a palpable pressure in the air. Native legends make veiled references to the ones who ate the wind and bit the bone, ancient beings who predated the tribes. Whether these tales are memory or metaphor is unknown, but the dental truth remains: something with a double bite once lived, and perhaps died in the shadow of Pennsylvania's quiet hills. In 1937, near the mist-veiled rise of Potter's Bluff, an excavation revealed 3 skeletons that stirred both awe and dread. These were not ordinary human remains. Their skulls were elongated naturally, with cranial plates fused in a way unseen in any regional population. Each body was buried in a triadic arrangement, heads inward, knees bent, arms folded, as if positioned in some ceremonial alignment. Around them were obsidian discs, coiled copper bands, and etched bone totems bearing spiral patterns and concentric eyes. Most disturbing was the orientation. The graves were aligned to a precise 33.3 degrees northwest, matching solstice star alignments seen in Incan and Egyptian structures. The soil around the burial was laced with hematite, and the grave itself was sealed with a layer of white ash. No habitation site was found nearby. No tools, no pottery, no signs of life. Just death. Researchers argued over the origins. Some claimed evidence of cross-continental diffusion, others of a long-lost race predating all known inhabitants. But when ownership of the land changed hands, the site was covered and sealed. The elongated skulls disappeared into obscurity, and the coordinates are now whispered only by those who still believe giants once prayed to stars beneath Pennsylvania's sky. Outside the small town of Clarion, deep in the forest where old oaks twist like frozen serpents, lies a burial site uncovered in 1945 that should not exist. It consisted of a perfect stone circle, 30 feet in diameter, within which stood 7 upright skeletons, each over 7 feet tall. These were not haphazard graves. Each skeleton faced outward, spaced evenly around the circle, as if guarding the boundary between the living and the dead. Worn copper chest plates covered their ribs, and carved totems of horned serpents lay clasped in their hands. The stone circle aligned precisely with both the lunar standstill and two underground water veins. Dowsers reported extreme energy surges within the ring. Compasses spun erratically. Researchers were baffled by the site's geometry and ritual implications. Local law had long warned children not to enter the listening ring after sundown, fearing whispers and visions. Attempts to excavate further led to inexplicable equipment failures and sudden illness among workers. The burial circle was reburied and left unmarked, but forest hikers still stumble upon its outline, and some claim to hear voices speaking a language older than the wind. The sentinels remain underground, silent standing, guarding what they were sworn to protect. In the overgrown hollows of Armstrong County, a series of shallow pits was discovered that contained something uniquely unsettling: bone caches, composed entirely of femurs. These femurs, arranged in spirals or bundles, were massive, some over 32 inches long, and bore deep wear marks that suggested habitual use or ritual movement. There were no skulls, no torsos, just thigh bones, each wrapped in deteriorated hide and encircled by obsidian blades and red ochre dust. Archaeologists speculated on warrior cults, dismemberment rituals, or perhaps ceremonial preservation. One femur bore etched markings resembling a stylized sun disk with radiating lines. Carbon dating placed the bones at over 2,400 years old. Locals called the place the Grinder's Pit, a name passed down from elders, who warned never to dig where bones outnumber breath. Theories range from burial offerings to cannibalistic rites, but no conclusive evidence was found. The site was declared off-limits after strange events, equipment malfunctions, sudden power loss, and one researcher reporting dreams of being buried alive by giants. The bones were removed to an undisclosed archive. The pits remain, partially filled by rain, staring upward like open mouths in the ground, hungry for memory, or more. Near the high bluffs of Shikellamy State Park, a low mound was quietly excavated in 1954 by a private group of researchers working under the radar. What they found was unprecedented. 7 skeletons, all infant in proportion, but measuring between 4 and 5 feet in length. Their skulls were disproportionate, with wide-set eyes, double cranial sutures, and rows of tiny conical teeth. Each was laid in an individual chamber, with carved stone talismans, resembling fetal giants. Soil analysis revealed high concentrations of mercury, bone ash, and pollen from extinct plants. The chamber walls were adorned with charcoal sketches of spiral wombs and figures walking out of them. Some believe this was a sacred nursery for a genetic offshoot, perhaps revered as divine or feared as cursed. No adult remains were found. The layout resembled a star map, suggesting these children were destined for something beyond human comprehension. Locals still claim the ground hums faintly at night. The site has been resealed, the land marked as protected, but hikers speak of laughter in the wind and shadows shaped like children peering from behind trees. These weren't ordinary burials, they were something else, something waiting to be born again. Deep in the heart of Shamokin Grove, a forgotten altar rests beneath layers of moss and thyme. It is a flat stone slab, 6 feet across, stained a deep brown red that no rain has ever washed away. When uncovered during a 1938 WPA survey, researchers found animal bones arranged in precise spirals around the slab, alongside bowls carved from antler, filled with dried ochre powder. Radiocarbon dating placed the offerings at over 1,800 years old. The local tribes had no oral memory of the site, but some elders spoke of the place where the earth drank willingly. Geochemical analysis revealed unusually high levels of iron in the soil surrounding the altar, suggesting frequent blood offerings. Around the slab, carved into surrounding stones, were markings resembling open eyes and inverted triangles, perhaps symbols of vigilance or passage. Even today, the site remains strangely silent, birdless, as though nature itself remembers. Some say the altar was used to seal something in. Others claim it was a door, fed with sacrifice, but no one stays there after nightfall, and no one has ever dared to test if the stone still drinks. In the ravine known as Rattlesnake Hollow, archaeologists stumbled upon what they first assumed to be animal traps. But these pits, dug with geometric precision and surrounded by low stone walls, told a different story. Inside lay scorched bones, mostly deer, some canine, and a few unmistakably human fragments. The soil was blackened with carbon and fat residue, and several charred wooden posts stood at the pit edges, suggesting tethering or ceremonial bindings. At the center of one pit was a charred effigy, a humanoid figure with antlers made of woven reeds and bark. The entire complex, once fully uncovered, formed a crescent shape when viewed from above. Local legends speak of a hunger moon ceremony, where offerings were made to the spirits of famine. But this site was more than symbolic. It was a place of fire, blood, and invocation. Every winter, hunters still avoid the hollow, reporting the cries of animals that shouldn't exist, and fires that flicker without heat. The land here does not rest. It remembers. And what was once fed still waits for more. Near the edges of a long-forgotten trail in Lycoming County lies a circle of stones arranged like drums around a flattened clearing. Each stone is hollowed slightly on top, and when struck, they emit different tones, an eerie music preserved by accident or design. Archaeologists dated the arrangement to at least 1,000 years ago. Charcoal layers beneath the center suggest controlled burning, likely ceremonial fires. Pollen samples taken from the soil revealed large quantities of mugwort and datura, both plants with psychoactive properties used in trance rituals. Petroglyphs nearby depict human figures with radiating lines from their heads and serpents circling their feet. Some believe the drums were used during moon ceremonies to call upon celestial or underworld entities. Others claim it was a healing circle, its vibrations used to realign the spirit. Still, the precise tuning of the stones remains unexplained. Even today, on cold nights, some hikers hear rhythmic pulses echo through the trees, as if the stones remember the hands that struck them, and still wait for the ritual to resume. Standing Stone Park once drew tourists for its towering central monolith, but the true story lies beneath it, where scorched earth and circular burn patterns suggest ancient ceremonial fires, older than the park itself. Recent ground-penetrating radar revealed layers of ash and bone arranged in spiral configurations. Around the edges of this underground pattern are sandstone carvings of stick figures with flame-like auras and clawed hands, each positioned facing outward, away from the spiral's center. The local Iroquois once spoke of a place where fire sang back, and elders warned never to sleep near the stone. Excavations also uncovered ceremonial blades carved from volcanic glass, not native to Pennsylvania, raising questions about ancient trade or pilgrimage routes. Whatever happened here was intense, organized, and sacred. Park officials now restrict access to the area after sunset, citing safety concerns. But those who remain past twilight report headaches, disorientation, and dreams of fire dancing in human form. The monolith still stands, not just as a monument, but perhaps as a warning. High atop Mount Davis, Pennsylvania's tallest peak, lies a near-invisible circle of standing stones, long thought to be simple boundary markers. But a 2011 archaeological survey discovered something more profound. The stones align with major celestial events, including solstices, lunar standstills, and the helical rising of specific stars. Beneath the central stone were ashes, bird bones, and shards of painted pottery, suggesting offerings left at designated times. The entire site is encircled by a ring of shallow depressions that fill with water seasonally, reflecting the sky in what some believe was a symbolic merger of earth and heavens. Nearby, etched onto a flat slab, is a recurring symbol, a vertical line splitting a human figure in half. Some interpret it as a depiction of spirit duality, others as a boundary-crossing rite. Mount Davis was never just the tallest point in the state. It may have been the highest altar, and under certain stars, the stones still cast shadows in perfect alignment, as if reenacting a forgotten choreography no longer performed. In the shadowed woodlands of the endless mountains, a shrine carved directly into a cliff face has stood hidden for centuries, discovered only in the 1990s by a hiker who followed what he called a humming in the stone. The shrine consists of a recessed alcove containing 3 seated figures, each faceless, with hands pressed together in prayer. Around them, the rock is etched with serpentine lines, spirals and patterns resembling the internal organs of animals. Offerings, bundles of feathers, bones and red clay figurines were found neatly arranged at their feet. The shrine faces due west, catching the final light of the setting sun. Local tribes disavow knowledge of it, and state archaeologists have refused to comment. Some suggest it was a place of sacrifice, others a hidden chapel for an unknown forest cult. At sunset, the cliff reportedly glows faintly, a result of mineral composition or something else. Birds do not nest here, insects fall silent. The faceless figures seem to listen, and some who visit say they feel watched not just from the forest, but from within the stone itself. From the star-aligned bones to blood-fed altars, Pennsylvania's ancient landscapes whisper a truth more haunting than fiction, that before history there was memory, and before memory there was something else entirely. These ruins, mounds, glyphs, and tombs are not simply archaeological puzzles, they are echoes. Echoes of peoples who carved meaning into stone, who bled into the soil not to survive, but to be remembered or feared. The earth does not forget, even if we do. It keeps the rhythm of drums that no longer beat, preserves the heat of fires that burned without smoke, and protects names spoken only in ritual breath. We have walked alongside giants, dined at the edges of forgotten altars, and heard the hum of stones that still sing beneath moss. The question is no longer what was real, but what remains, and what perhaps still watches.